Hey guys, welcome for for the last day of Design Week. I wasn't necessarily going to record this because this is a bit of a challenge to record what I wanted to do, which was show you guys what it is that I mean by the Apple style. I know I wasn't going to record this even in the prior episode, and I wasn't sure that I should do this now, but I thought, what the heck, let's give it a shot. And let's just go ahead and show you what I mean by the Apple style and everything that entails. So here's my laptop, and so we're looking at the apple.com website today. That's what's out today. This is not the style that I'm looking to emulate at all. Here's their homepage. Here's their, let's go to their iPhone page very quickly. This is what that looks like. Notice the clashing colors, a lot of sort of disjoint elements. I mean, there's a semblance of order, but really it's hard to navigate. It's hard to understand what's going on in one glance. Anyway, here's the Mac page. Very clashing colors. Let's see here, but really I think on the homepage it's interesting. The typography and the fonts are so clearly different from what used to be the case. This is their menu, but let's take a look now very quickly. Yeah, before I go on very quickly, the challenge was for me for how to, I have in my mind what it is that I'm striving for, and I have that in my mind, the Apple style, because when I was starting this, this venture, 2013 or so, Steve Jobs was still alive or soon to be deceased, but the aesthetic was very much alive and profoundly permeating not only the internet as a whole, but especially clearly on the apple.com website. So it was very easy for me to understand what it is they wanted, and I knew that's what I wanted, and it was a very simple leap. But once he was deceased, and they quickly jettisoned everything that was great about the Apple style, and it became sort of this. I no longer would reference this design as an inspiration for my work, and I still had what I wanted in my mind, so everything was still fine. Even years later, everything was in my mind and safely stored away. But the challenge was then how to scale the venture, how to scale Media Dei, and that involves having other people do a lot of the work that you're doing. Scaling yourself requires other people, and I mentioned this in the prior episode of the challenge of how to find the right designer. Developers are not as hard to find. The challenge is how to find people that are willing to. It's just a different set of challenges, more sort of financial and more strategic and more mundane. But with designers, the challenge is aesthetic. It's a challenge of taste. You can't, make someone like a certain style, and so they either like it or they don't. And if they don't, you're out of luck. And if you have no one that can do the work on the design level, then you can't scale. You can have 100,000 developers, and if it's just you, if it's just me, there's no way to scale the venture, to scale the company, and therefore it's going to fail. And it was a very acute existential challenge for me to understand, how do I scale myself, the design parts of myself. And so it just began with a lot of looking for interns and looking for apprentices, almost in the old-fashioned way. But then the challenge was, once I got a potential candidate, the challenge was, how do I convey all of this to them and get them to understand what I want, what I'm looking for. And that's when I saw the need to understand more formally what it is that I have over here in my mind, and start to develop a kind of a curriculum, a Media Dei curriculum. And so this sort of design week is a good summary of the kinds of things that I have them do, which is I start them on the classic. I make them just drown in the classic typography stuff, book stuff, a lot of practice with classic design principles. And then the challenge is how do I convey the Apple style to them, if that's indeed an important constituent of the Media Dei understanding of beauty in the modern world, on the technology, on the UI UX, on the computer side of things. And that's when I really hit a stumbling block, because, well, like, let's look at that, and we can't learn much from this. This has a few elements of the old style, so if you know what I'm going to show next, then you know that this is a little bit okay, but it's starting to get really bad as the years go by. Anyway, sorry for the hand. So the challenge was how do I go back in 2016, 2017 that I started to do all this. How do I go back in time and show them the Apple style? And that's impossible because that's gone, erased. So I ended up a long time ago, right when they were about to throw the style out in 2013, going on 14. I ended up buying an iPhone 5 right before they updated to iOS 7 and threw everything out. Like literally the day before they threw it out is when I bought my iPhone. And so I have an iPhone still that has the old beautiful system. Maybe I'll show that in this video. And I have a few iPads. I've been collecting the old pre-iOS 7 iPads that you can still click on things, you can still use things, and see the old graphics, the old effects, the old sort of conventions and design patterns. So I use that as a basis as well. In the same way that I would show people, interns, I would show them, Robert Estienne's title page. We just have an intern right now. She's really interested in this work. I've had her study, Estienne and Simon de Collines, okay, etc. in the beginning. And now the challenge is, how do I have her study the Apple style? Well, I literally took my old ancient iPhone 5 that I specifically saved for this, and I had her play with the keys, and I had her play with the buttons and play with the interface, just to see how amazingly, incredibly intuitive it was. Because she doesn't have any access to it. She's like 21. She's probably like too young to even have remembered it by now, and there's no way to install the old system. You can't install it. You can't like save it, download it, and then reinstall it. It's built into the firmware in some way, that if you don't have it, you can never get it. So I have those old relics of design that I keep and I present to people, and I train myself and the designers on that. So that's interesting. But I wanted to move on beyond that and actually go to the sort of the web, the way the web looked like back then. And that's real challenging because you can't go back. And then I realized that you can go back in time. And you use a service called archive.org, which is an incredibly valuable website. All they do as a website is go through the internet and save web pages they find. They just save them as timestamps on their website, on archive.org. And so what happens is they've been in this process since, I don't know, 1999 or 1998 or 7 or 6, a long, long time. So you can even go back to what websites used to look like in 1999. Okay? And if you can do that, you can certainly go back to, that was the epiphany. You can go back to the old Apple style by using archive.org. And so that's what I've been doing a lot of. Let me show you. Oops, the video got interrupted, so I'm just resuming from where I left off. And I took an advantage of the fact that the video ended to actually take out my iPhone 5 that I just mentioned and show it to you. So take a look at this. Look at this thing. And let's see if it works. Yeah. Look at that. Look at the old button. Just the sort of the lock screen. Let me find a way to not have it reflect off of the window. Yeah, I think that's good. Just the lock screen is interesting. You can even see the reflections on the clock. Anyway, of course, this is a famous element widget of the old iOS. We open this thing. There's the old buttons. But yeah, look at this. This is the old. Oh my God! Why is it so? Oh yeah, I guess the battery is out. All right. Well, anyway, let me show you something else that's exactly in the same category, which is the iPad. Believe it or not, I have both. And actually, this thing is also at 1%, so it's going to die any second. But look at this thing. This thing is remarkable. And let's see if we you know, like create a category. I want to show you guys the category. Cool. So look at how the category looks like when you have a group of icons. You have a beautiful little texture. You can't really see it. There's a lot of shadows and a lot of beautiful effects on this screen, reflections. But you click on the group and it slides up like this. Look at that. It just feels so intuitive and natural. The old settings screen with the icons on the left. Oh, and it's dead as well. I guess I have to recharge them. Anyway, that's what I have. I have these two guys, and I have my intern study them. Look literally like a textbook, because that's all we have. The designers that have done all this have long been fired from Apple, and that world is dead and gone. And Microsoft basically killed it with their, abominable, mobile Windows insanity, flat design, rectangle nonsense. And then Google now took it up with, what is it called, the paper design, whatever it's called. It's also flat. Now Apple is following their suit. Anyway, so that's the devices that I use. But going back to the web stuff, okay, very quickly now. This is what they look now, totally different. But this is what they looked like in 2013, going on the archive.org. See the URL there? So you could enter the URL into their bar, the Wayback Machine, and it just gives you from September 30th, 2013. This is what this looked like. There's even evidence of this here. Anyway, so what's cool about this is that we now can go into some of the sub menus, and this is what the first MacBook Pro, the new MacBook Pro menu looked like. First of all, look at the incredible top menu. You can't really tell because of, let me close this Wayback Machine thing. This is what the site looked like, and you can't really tell on this phone because of the low fidelity, but beautiful reflections. Beautiful reflections on these buttons, okay? And this is what that became now. Just this, a rectangle, a black rectangle. Like, that's what they consider to be more advanced, believe it or not. But this is what it looked like before. No, not this. This right here. Beautiful selections for all their devices. This is how you would choose one of them. This is how you would choose another. A beautiful sort of with a shadow little arrow to tell you which group you're looking at. And you're scrolling down, and you have very sort of understandable chunks of text and content, beautiful dividers between, a nice shadow at the top, sort of a very subtle radial gradient coming down. Look at these chunks of content, dividing and organizing text. And also, interestingly enough, I don't know if this was intended or not, but just how the shape of this object, well, look, this is even better. The shape of this person's legs is vertical, so they've arranged the text to be perfectly spaced enough to fit the legs. And here, the shape is more of like a semicircle, and so they shaped the text to fit the semicircle. I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but that's you know, a tiny minor design choice that is an example of what I'm talking about. All right, so this is the MacBook Pro screen. This is what like an iPhone, let me close. This is also, of course, on the archive from May 2013. This is what the old, of course, the beautiful screen, nav menu at the top. Look at that. Just beautiful. Oops. Anyway, so this is when the iPhone 5 was launched. You can still see what is it doing? Okay, it's loading right now. It's very slow. Yes. No. Okay, cool. So yeah, you can still see the old icons that I just showed you on my iPhone. That was still a the present for them back then, believe it or not. Like, that was still a reality for them. And anyway, so this is how this page looks. Notice again, the sections are very logically arranged, very clearly laid out. You can clearly see the divisions between sections. The way this section is divided from this section is very clear. You have a little subtle shadow gradient as well. Clear, crisp headlines. A visual hierarchy difference between the heading and the body. A link that's also visually different. So you have this section, and then you have this section, then you have this section, of course the old iPhone 5 screenshots. Then you have this. So you see, there's a very clear logical arrangement to this whole thing, which is very interesting to me. That to me is the modern incarnation of, like, you know, Robert Estienne's design of books. I see the same continuity. So that's the old iPhone page design. Okay. Let's see, what is this? Oh yeah, that's the same thing. Okay. And this is this is the Mac. This is the old Mac design, Mac website design. So starting from the top again, beautiful top nav, the classic, you know, Apple nav navigation, very stark and crisp heading, beautiful photo. Again, you see the sections. See that section being clearly visible. That's one section, and this is another, with its own heading, with its own subheading, its own body of the text. This is a new section with its own organization, a new section. So again, we have that same logical arrangement that doesn't leave you confused. It's very crisp and logical and clear. Let's see, and we can show this, I guess, MacBook Air. We can close that as well. So this is the MacBook Air design. So let's look at that very quickly. Look at this interesting divider. First of all, it's even just like a lot of text followed by text is still somehow interesting because of this divider. This divider is a very, very subtle radial gradient coming down from the top, but masked out, so you only see the bottom traces of it. Look at that beautiful effect. And then you have the photos, of course, the old photos with the old iOS, not iOS, Mac OS. And of course, here's my machine. I didn't mention this, but I have the old OS Maverick still, and I'm not upgrading to Yosemite or anything else after that. So I'm definitely still living in the world of, of Steve Jobs' design, sure, in a big way. Look at the old icons and the old effects and everything like that. I'm definitely still very much into that every day. Anyway, so this is the MacBook Air design, website design. So this hopefully is a good portrayal, okay, of what I mean. Not very crisp, I'm sorry to say, but I think good enough, of what it is, the Apple style that I'm talking about. Oh, like, I guess we can show, like, now that you've seen the elegance of the old, okay, we go back to the new, okay, and this is like, look at that ugly font. I don't know what they were thinking with that. Let's look at something here. So they still have, interestingly, they still have dividers, okay? But what's interesting about this is that it's a much more clashing, much more rip your eyes out sort of a clash. And that's a very modern understanding of design. Clashing colors are big, like this red and this black. Like, look at this, from this black to this red. You like poke your eyes out with that kind of a thought. And then this is what I've shown before. It's beginning to be more unwieldy mentally to process, like multiple columns and little subheadings. Of course, these colors all conflict. There's a gradient here: blue, purple, white, black. There's a little bit of beige here, a little bit of pink here, white, another kind of blue, some green over here, purple, blue, white, some other kinds of blue, black, white. This is very strongly black and white. A lot of just insanely, let me see if I can zoom it out, just very very clashing colors. And so they still have, like I mentioned, a little bit of the old organization where you have the heading and the subheadings, but it's no longer something we can look to in a simple and naive way and just copy. Like we could copy the old style, we could copy SDN, or we could copy, Steve Jobs himself said, those who like, resemble, but those who love steal, or something like that, or whatever. Brazen theft is like the highest form of compliment, or something like that. And of course, this isn't something copyrighted, and we don't intend to break any copyrights if this is copyrighted. But to whatever extent we're allowed to, we're looking back in order to revive and look forward and bring forward all the best of the past. That's really the Media Dei ethos, the best of the past in the present and the future. We're not afraid to go back within a couple of years and be, anachronistic, or be less than what the latest, what the Brahmins and the courtiers of today's aestheticians are telling us is supposed to be the most beautiful of whatever. We don't follow trends. We don't follow fads. That's because I don't follow trends and fads, and so the company is forced to, because of that, because of my fiat, to just follow along. And I have had people that were willing to follow fads and were willing to just keep changing for the sake of change, and they did not stay long in the company. They had to leave. The Media Dei aesthetic does not change with the fashions. It's permanent. That doesn't mean it's boring and it's repetitive. There's a lot of variation, a lot of things that could be different and change and move and flow with a lot of different decisions and a lot of context being added in. But its effort is permanent. Its intention is permanent and perpetual, and it has as its bases the inflexible divine structures of the world, the permanent structures of the human eye, the human vision, the way the brain and the way the human soul interprets the visible world, And that's never going to change. And it's not a matter of taste or education or whatever, or conditioning. That's a permanent visual factor. And so our aim is to discover that, and really to follow the teachers that have discovered that, and maybe do a little bit of a discovery ourselves if we ever can, or whatever, but live in that world. And so build a design that's always going to be the best design for the human person to ingest, and that is the most expressive expression of the divine patterns and formulae and proportions of the universe. That is, I think, a good enough place to wrap up on for Media Day Design Week Day 4. Thank you for watching.